And now, the World Situation Report with Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian. The U.S. Space Force, also known as a front organization for the secret Space Force, has big plans for U.S. citizens, and they are quickly becoming an enemy to the American people as they plan to take over the White House come November. An update on the Middle East as Israel bombs Beirut, and sources say a power plant in Israel was also attacked in the last 24 hours. Now that everyone knows who was behind the exploding phones, could this mean the end of China's political hold in the region? The fall equinox quickly approaches on Sunday. Find out what we can expect. All this and more on today's World Situation Report.
Now here's the World Situation Report with Kimberly Gogan in the Office of the Guardian.
Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. Now it's time for today's World Situation Report. It's been a long day, so we're going to cover a few things that we've heard that are going on around the world, and might as well just get right to it. Okay, first one, everybody is talking about the fact that the Federal Reserve has lowered interest rates. And they didn't lower them just a little bit. They lowered them by 0.5%, which is a pretty steep bump for the Federal Reserve. Behind the scenes, people that work at the Federal Reserve said they didn't actually do anything because, well, they can't do anything. But what it does for investors is it makes for a more attractive bond market, more specifically government bonds and central bank bonds. So people are more apt to buy when interest rates are low, because they feel that as the market changes, they'll be able to make quite a bit more money. So bottom line, they're trying to sell more government bonds, not just U.S. government, but government bonds all over the world to investors, which is kind of pretty much fallen flat. It did, however, ensure that the stock market stayed a little bit higher today. Of course, whatever they say affects the alleged market, and so people respond. Either way, it's just a game at this point. The Federal Reserve can't lend any money. When they say they're going to lower interest rates, what that used to mean for people is that meant that banks and or governments would be able to borrow money from the Federal Reserve at a lower rate. However, they don't have anything to lend at the moment, but they were really hoping they could sell some papers because the U.S. government is really struggling at the moment. So is China and a number of other countries. So there goes that. The other thing that has happened as a result of interest rates going lower is it does usually affect oil prices. So between the upheaval that's happening in the Middle East, of course, that always increases oil prices for whatever reason, even though most of those countries aren't really involved in oil. But they did increase oil prices based on the fact that there were some bombings there, and I'll talk about that in a second. But when the oil prices go up, that means that the world's largest oil companies make more money off of consumers. It doesn't mean the cost of oil behind the scenes from large refineries and large wells in the Middle East. All of a sudden it costs more money to do that. Not at all. Does it cost more money for transport? Not at all. So the base route cost of oil and gas being pumped from wells is of no significance to the market whatsoever, really, other than the fact that they just decide to raise prices for us, the consumer. So when you see the price of oil go up in the markets, yes, it would affect people that do trade in commodities futures somewhat in the futures market. But most of that has been cornered by the likes of BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard and all those people anyway. So I'm not really sure. It looks like a fundraising expedition at this point for the deep state, but I think that they are so disconnected from macro and microeconomics, they don't realize this is not going to raise enough money to achieve their objective. It might raise a small amount of money for a short period of time, but based on all the promises that they're making out there, I'm so sorry, but absolutely not do I see that helping them in any way, shape, or form. It's not good enough for world domination, guys. Sorry. You can try again, maybe another time. So, in our last news report, we did talk about the exploding phones, pagers, and other electronic devices in the Middle East. That has ceased. They are not blowing up anymore. And when countries found out who was responsible, which they all did, they found out who was responsible. There was a lot of infighting going on behind the scenes between intelligence agencies, various countries to include China, Japan. There's a lot of arguing going on with the Order of the Black Sun. There's a lot of talk about mutiny within the U.S. military and a number of other folks. Some want to go along with the plans, some don't want to go along with the plans. I do not think a lot of the people that were involved were aware that they were going to continue this in many countries, to include the United States and to include Israel. So the ones that they sold on this, exploding phone or exploding electronic device scam, were not aware that they were planning on doing it in their countries as well. However, there is one group here in the United States that doesn't mind what happens to U.S. citizens, and that is the front known as the Space Force. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Space Force, this is the one that you see on TV, that was started allegedly during the Trump administration. The Space Force was very, very present in the White House during the Trump administration, and they plan to be very, very present during the next one. So much so, that they would love to have a reason to start martial law in the U.S., and not only in the U.S., but everywhere. They are the most arrogant of all of the armed forces in the U.S. They participate in programs all over the world, as you may or may not know. I've had many run-ins with them in Greenland. It used to be called the Thule, as in Thule Society, air base there. Now it's called some strange name that the Space Force renamed it. So that is now a Space Force base in Greenland. There is a lot that happens in Greenland. Matter of fact, during the Trump administration, I don't know how long you've been following me, but during the Trump administration, Trump himself had gone to Greenland. It was during the time that he announced publicly that he had COVID, but yet he was going to one of these bases hoping to phone some alien race somewhere or something. Well, he had a nice chat with me. I was not happy about it. Him and his Space Force friends didn't get what they wanted, and they went home. But that doesn't stop the Space Force from still feeling like they have a lot of power by controlling the White House. As you know, there is no more Trump, and there is a lot of fighting going on right now with the organization. And I'm not... sometimes it seems like I'm, talking about Trump in a negative way, and I'm not really talking about Kamala. I have said things in the past because I'm not for anybody at this point. I'm for humanity. And both of these administrations represent dead people. And I'm not really sure that there is an organization like a PETA out there, where they're trying to save the animals. But for dead people, I don't think anybody's trying to save dead people at this point in time. I could be wrong, though. But on the one side of it, this is more of a worldwide issue because there's a lot of fighting going on between pretty much nearly everybody and the Trump operatives at this moment. Nobody's really wanting to listen to them anymore. Nobody is believing. This is in political circles. It doesn't matter if you're on the right or the left, and it doesn't matter what country you're in. This includes Saudi Arabia. This includes Kuwait. This includes Jordan. This also includes, in part, Russia. And I say in part because that country is very divided as well. So the infighting there, in the lack of trust globally because of all the promises this group has been making, plus the Q movement and all of that, and not delivering, they have lost face. So they're going to use their face front organization called the Space Force to say that they're going to be in charge. So now, you're putting another face. This is what the deep state does and I've said this so many times and I'm going to repeat it again because it's so relevant. They just put another face. And what happens when you get a new face, the new face starts taking their new shoes for a walk. So the Space Force has been very active in the last 48 hours, barking out orders everywhere. And I mean everywhere. They needed oil prices to go up, so they bombed a bunch of citizens in Lebanon. We've got a little footage here from an associate. I told you the GIA is everywhere. So we do have some footage of that with the bombing that happened there in the last 24, 48 hours. Russia is again talking about nuclear war. Here in the United States, the Space Force is talking behind the scenes of an immediate lockdown once they are, because they consider themselves, once they are reelected as president of the United States. They are also talking about, and they have been now for a little over, not quite a month, but of starting a National Guard for the Space Force, which would then give the Space Force permission to act on U.S. soil, should the case need to be. Isn't this interesting what they're doing? I'm also hearing rumors behind the scenes of vaccines again, mandatory vaccines. I don't know which disease they're associated with, but apparently they're coming out with 3 new ones that doesn't say what you're being vaccinated against. Honestly, I wish there was a vaccine against these people, but there isn't. And maybe some EMPs or something, I'm not sure. But anyway, the point is that this is what they've been doing for the last couple of days now with their new shoes. They feel that with the Space Force in charge, because they were very present in the White House before, and they did such a bad job at that time, that they would be great to put as the front. And of course, they're very loyal to the secret space program that gave them their shoes in the first place, that put them forward. At the time that they were created, the Secret Space Force was not getting any funding through black project lines of the deep state anymore. So they created it so that they could then siphon money for black projects off of the U.S. budget. Now, they forgot there is no such thing at this moment as a U.S. budget, meaning, they're scraping, they're, drug running, they're doing all kinds of things across the border right now. And that is what your U.S. government is being funded with. A lot of drug money, a lot of illegal arms trading, a lot of, human trafficking, child protective services, most all of the money being generated to at least keep the lights on within the government is being generated in this way. They're selling very little bonds at this point. They just basically severed a lot of relationships in the Middle East. But they feel that they're still in the running for what they set out to do during the Trump administration with Operation Warp Speed. They feel that Operation Warp Speed would be then amplified with these 3 new alleged diseases. And they have tried. I must admit, they have tried very hard to infect us with something over the last few days, maybe even a couple of weeks. So that's what your Space Force is doing. So if you wonder why things are crazy in the United States right now and why all other militaries are all of a sudden reporting to the Space Force people, and why we're seeing American activity in Yemen and other areas of the world, why everybody is screaming at everybody, it's because the Space Force just tells everybody to sit down, shut up, and do what you're told. They feel that they have enough backing. They also feel that the Order of the Black Sun, Black Nobility, or Orsini family are still very, very powerful in this world, and they were told so. They were also told that a lot of money was going to be coming out by end of business today. I can honestly tell you that that didn't happen. They are running operations in conjunction with the Space Force at this point, at the behest of the Orsini family in Italy. Where, for example, one of the things they did today, they took any company, known or unknown, that had a quantum computer. That means that they are capable of generating many terahertz, some 30,000, 800,000 terahertz, and they created what's called it's a hacking technique called a border computer. So it's like joining your laptop with all of the other laptops in your neighborhood, and then you combine the processing power of each one, and then you have one large computer that would process a lot more than just your laptop would as an individual. So they felt that if they went ahead and connected all these computers at MIT and NNT and Google and other, there were so many different, they were at Oakcrest today and a few other locations throughout the world. It wasn't just a U.S. Situation. That they could then break into the golden age AI or alpha, or I don't even know where they were going. The system that we have installed, even in human computer networks, has a very hefty defense system. It is designed to defend and protect, and that is what it did. So it sent a very large, I'm not going to call it an EMP or an electromagnetic pulse. I'm going to call it more of a frequency. And now none of those people that hooked up their computers to try to hack us are functioning at this moment. So no surprise there. They have also started barking out a lot of orders to all of the other SSP operatives that may be left in this world. That is like Chiron is back, Arasaka I've seen today, Taifeng, the medical divisions trying to infect us with something or other. I've seen in the last few days them try to send through computers toxoplasmosis, histoplasmosis, COVID, cancer, you name it. They would just like us to have it, and so that they can then sell these 3 vaccines. And in the secret meetings I was listening to, I didn't hear what kind of disease they were talking about. Like, they didn't actually mention what the vaccines were going to be for. And I don't think they really care what they're for. I think they would like to sell them and make some money. I also think that they would like to try another go with whatever they put in the other ones, to try to kill more people. So your Space Force is pretty much planning on invading the U.S. I've heard a lot of that. Lockdowns, of course, martial law. Then it wouldn't be so bad because now they can make the head of the Space Force, your new alleged head of state. Then, of course, it wouldn't matter that Trump is already dead. There's a lot of talk behind the scenes that a lot of people don't want Kamala either. They really kind of have made a political mess for their own selves. They really don't have a representative at this point in time that is acceptable to the both to the American people and to them, of course, because they need to control them like a puppet. But this is what happens when you don't have any leadership. This will be our first selection in the U.S. Where they haven't had any leadership. A lot of these covens and, these other people and, they definitely ran a tight ship and they had to follow orders to a T. Look what happens when they try to make their own. Again, little knowledge is dangerous, and that's pretty evident with what's going on here. I mean, lowering interest rate to sell bonds to who? China's told half the world right now that, the U.S. is going to crash and that they're going to be taking over. So, there's all these countries they've signed backdoor agreements with for BRICS and BRICS currencies and all of these things. There's, I don't know, I've heard 70 to 80 countries that are on board with that. I mean, who's going to buy Fed bonds? Who? I mean, again, I have to say this. I really do. And then of course they call me when their hacking doesn't work out, or call, some associate of mine somewhere. And then they try to see if they can lie, cheat, and steal from me and in turn from you. So in the last 24 hours, we've gotten calls from the military and, they're ready to move forward. Meanwhile, I'm listening to their new quote unquote leadership, and I'm listening to all the things they're planning on doing to American citizens behind the scenes. And I don't know if they just think I'm blonde, I'm dumb, I'm just a woman sitting in Durango. But who in their right mind would say, yes, I would love to be locked down again. And hey, by the way, could you do it under military guard with National Guard everywhere this time? That would be awesome. Enforce vaccines. Oh, now you're talking my language, right? No, said no one ever. No one ever said that. So, no, I've also gotten calls from representatives of the Yakuza looking for funding for Japan because they had also a big bill due today. They're running out of money to run their alleged operations now as the new head of the Black Sun or Black Dragon group. So, again, I don't know what they're doing, and at this point, other than trying to prevent them, like, we don't see any more exploding phones in the Middle East anymore, do we? No, we do not. So that's not an option here that the Space Force is going to be able to do with American citizens either. Other than trying to make sure that they don't kill humanity in the process, I honestly don't care. I do not care at all what they do. They can sit there and talk about running operations all they want. I mean, I could sit here and watch Google videos of buying a yacht in Ibiza, but that's never going to happen anyway. I mean, nor do I want it, but I'm just saying, I don't have billions of dollars to go buy a yacht in Ibiza and a slip that costs millions and hundreds of millions a year or whatever. I don't have that. And even if I did, that would be the last thing I would spend it on. But they're living in a fantasy world right now where they think they're going to be able to regain control on a day ending in Y. And one of those days ending in Y, as they are all talking about it behind the scenes, is the fall equinox, which happens to fall on this Sunday. So if it's not the full moon before the equinox, it's not maybe it's the equinox. Maybe we got our days wrong. So I can tell you they've already been ramping up their operations. Today is the third day since the full moon, and on the 17th, and they are just going like gangbusters right now. Today, it's just been hacking after hacking after hacking. The Space Force and the Secret Space Force are just barking out insanely ridiculous orders that even if they had hundreds of billions of dollars would never work. It would never work. It's never going to work. Even if I wasn't doing anything over here, it's still not going to work. They don't know how to run a government. It's abundantly clear, let alone run 200 governments around the world. There is no way that those people are going to achieve that. And that is the most important thing. You when you're looking at your kids or you're looking at a friend and they have this great idea and you just know from your experience with whatever this idea pertains to that their plan is not going to work. It's not going to end well. Some of men and women out there probably do that with your spouses too. You probably look at your spouse and go, yeah, that's not going to end well. That's not going to fix the car. That's not going to fix that's not going to get it done. And you're just looking and you're like, yep, well, we'll just let him do it and we'll call the plumber later. I'm sure you've had that talk with your spouse before. But anyway, the point is that right there is an extremely positive sign for our future. Does it cause disturbances here and there? Yes. Do we see this continuing? Yes, I do. I think they're going to go around in circles when this does not work on Sunday, and it will not. There is not a gateway opening. There is not a miraculous reoccurrence of anti-source or Lucifer or somebody that's coming to help them. There is no money that is going to fall from the sky. There's going to be no renewal of agreements for these people in any way, shape, or form. There will not be any kind of anything that they're expecting. In fact, I'm expecting quite the opposite over this weekend. So, this just gives Source on Source's side, as long as the way is clear and there's nothing those people can do to block the way. This is just old things maybe that would reoccur around the time of an equinox, old space junk, stuff like that. But honestly, there is nothing that those people can do at this point. And if anything else, they've tried with Northrop Grumman. They were at it yesterday. They're pulling out Mitter Corporation, which is a front or used to be a front for what was the Jason Society. At this point, I don't know. It just looks like a whole lot of hot air over there. A lot of hot air. Maybe that is the cause of this climate crisis everybody keeps talking about. It's all the hot air coming out of the deep state. Rather hot air than lockdowns and crazy martial law and all this crazy stuff. But I can tell you, I wish them luck all weekend long. God bless them in their attempts to do something to hack a computer that doesn't even come from this density, that was created in a way that they would never understand. Creating and co-creating with source energy and essence and consciousness and, being able to create that quote unquote positive space junk that we need, for hyperconducting of source energy. I don't really, I don't know. God bless them. May God bless them the way they blessed all of us. I can say that. And, with confidence. But that's pretty much where it's sitting today. The news being late is predominantly just because we have too been moving forward. Um, we are working on a lot of things with the marketplace, getting that ready and prepared. We have begun some testing on the back end for sellers and vendor logins there, trying to make it as easy as possible. Thoughts of creating some training videos so that if people have never done this before, um, hopefully they'll be able to do it with this marketplace, making sure we're available in every currency, all over the world. We have something in there to do some test transactions, see what the customer experience is like. So we're moving forward on that front. So there's been a lot of things at time that has been taken up from that. Also, kind of mitigating the situation in the Middle East, listening to these meetings, which, oh God, I tell you, uh, you know, these meetings are just so full of egos. I mean, they're going to need to create ego continent. Like maybe Source can terraform an extra continent on this planet and we can just put them on there because they need a whole continent for the size of their egos to be. They need a place for that. Or maybe there's another planet called Planet Ego, like what was that? Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I think it was. Where some guy had created Planet Ego. Maybe there is one of those somewhere. I'll have to ask a source. Anyway, that's pretty much what's been happening throughout the day to day. The hacking game was fun. It didn't last very long. They're still trying. God bless them. Still trying to get access. Still trying to reinstall old programs. I expect to dance a lot with the Space Force and now that they've got new shoes and they think they've got new information, which is old information for us. Maybe they need to watch our news. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's pretty much the state of affairs as of Friday. I'm hoping we have a more pleasant weekend than we were expecting. You know how they are usually around their equinox times, solstice times, all of that type of thing. I'd say, it's been a little bit off as they try things. It usually doesn't last that long. I know a number of people that have been feeling a little sick. It's probably because of some frequencies they've been sending out. When we reverse those frequencies, it's really up to the person at that time. What I mean by that is if you are emotionally, mentally tired, achy, you feel all the things that you would normally feel when you are about to have a cold or a flu, I would say, then the average human thinks, oh, I'm getting a cold, I'm getting a flu, and responds accordingly, which then brings that into fruition. And now they actually have a physical virus. Without your help, they can't bring those things in. So I've recognized it myself, even in the fact I'm like, oh, here we go again. It's trying to convince me, that I am sniffly or sneezing or something. But in reality, I'm like, no, I feel fine. I have plenty of energy. I've been working on 9,000 different things today. I'm not buying into that. But it does take some time, and it will take some time for them to stop pulling out things they know nothing about, to try to do things that just don't work. So we'll see. I think it's going to be busy over here for the weekend, but for the most part, I don't expect any major events to occur on Sunday, other than everybody will wake up at Sunday morning, enjoy a cup of coffee, I hope, and maybe go for a walk in nature, if it's nice enough where you're at. So enjoy your weekend. I We'll see you again on Monday.